The year is 2010. You've just opened a packet of match text, stuck your new World Cup stickers in their place, there's a Shoot magazine beside you as Shakira's Waka Waka blasts through the speakers of your Sony Ericsson. All was good with the world. Well, for me at least. I distinctly remember, whilst it felt football was in its golden age for me, my father, a long-time football fan, had never seemed more disengaged with football. Never more disengaged with the sport we both loved. Now, just to be clear, my dad's a Leeds fan and this was the 2010s, so I'm completely aware that a large part of this was having to watch El Hadj Diouf try and kick a football. But it did look to me like in a time where I had all the options in the world of what football content to consume, my dad had none. Now as an adult myself, I'm realising the game that has been such a huge part of my life no longer seems to me that I am the target demographic. So, is football for kids now? Has football always been for kids? Full transparency, no bias. Football didn't get worse, I got older, and it got safer, brighter, softer, and somewhere along the way, its audience started being spoken to like children. This wasn't because tactics got dumbed down or pundits lost their edge. It happened because football media stopped trusting their audience, and we traded culture for content. English football in the 90s and early 2000s, it wasn't polite, it wasn't aspirational, and it definitely wasn't advertiser friendly. It was a bit laddish, very chaotic, sometimes embarrassing. It certainly had its flaws. If I had to go back to watching the troglodytes Keys and Gray fail to provide football analysis each week, I think I'd rather take up Quidditch as a hobby. Despite its many flaws, it felt human. Shows like Soccer AM didn't pretend football was refined. They met fans where they already were, hungover, tribal, half lucid on a Saturday morning. In the modern day, quite rightly, half the segments would be cut, but the other half is exactly what football culture has grown to miss. There's a tendency to flatten this era into problematic banter, but that misses the point. Soccer AM and shows alike were not high art, but it worked because it understood something modern football media struggles with. Football fans don't need to be instructed on how to feel. It trusted the audience to get the point. It wasn't to be taken super seriously at all. Since then, things have definitely shifted. But why? For this, we have to go all the way back to 1992. The formation of the Premier League wasn't just a sporting revolution, it was a marketing one. English football had a branding problem. Hooliganism rife, there was violence and a reputation aligned with, in quotation marks, pints and tits. With the rebrand, the league became a product, a global one. And global products can't be messy, they can't be local, and they can't be too adult. This wasn't inherently bad, it brought money, visibility, and legitimacy, but it also introduced the tendency to run on the code of never alienating a hypothetical new fan, even if this came at the cost of patronising the already existing ones. And somewhere along the way, football coverage stopped being about observation or even sitting in a moment or sitting in a feeling and started being about constant, fast-paced, ever-changing engagement. Not insight, interaction. Not analysis, vibes. Social media didn't just shorten attention spans, it changed the tone. Everything had to be instantly digestible, aggressively friendly, and emotionally prepackaged. Modern football media doesn't show you the game anymore, it tells you how to react, with captions, emojis, and forced relatability. And that brings us to the case of Sky Sports Halo. I hope in this video it doesn't come across as a bitter man longing for a time where his hobby was less inclusive, because the intention couldn't be more the opposite. Faux inclusivity is solely designed to maximise commercial profits and to dumb down audiences. To dumb down audiences into ignorance of the fact that standards and quality are very clearly dropping. Arguably the most affected group by this are in fact female sports fans. Earlier this year, the team at Sky Sports announced, released, and quickly suspended their new project and page, Halo. Now I probably don't have to explain this one too deeply, as the direction of the page was so instantly egregious to its viewers that it didn't last much longer than a couple of weeks. Halo wasn't just a misfire, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of women and their interests. Marketed as a space for women and new audiences, it didn't expand football culture, it just made the age-old mistake of assuming female hobbies are inherently silly and not to be taken seriously. Instead of treating its audience as curious adults, it spoke in the visual language of juvenile meme culture, pastel graphics, immature TikTok irony, and surface-level takes. At best, it assumed women sport fans didn't understand the sport and the sporting culture around what they were watching, and at worst assumed them unintelligent and childlike. The unspoken implication was uncomfortable, that feminine sports fandom needs to be simplified, that accessibility means infantilization. But obviously women don't need football explained to them like a bedtime story, and grown men alike don't need bright flashing colours to stay interested. Old football media more so understood something filmmakers used to live by: show don't tell. Let the silence breathe, let the crowd speak, let the moment land. Modern coverage is terrified of ambiguity. Every moment needs a caption, every emotion needs a prompt. But football fans, all of them, are smarter than that. Trust doesn't come from simplifying the product, it comes from believing your audience has chose to engage with your content, to be informed, and to learn something. When media treats fans like children, it doesn't make football more welcoming, it makes it hollow. The irony is that the more football tries to appeal to everyone, the less it feels like it belongs to anyone. And maybe the real risk isn't offending new audiences, it's losing the old ones, quietly and slowly, whilst no one's looking.